which reminds me of another situation I had recently where we were looking at purchasing a basket of trademarks, and lo and behold, they hadn't been renewed on time, and so there was a big hole, and that affected the valuation. So other pitfalls are that, like I disclosed here, that if you purchase some rights, all of a sudden, if it involves purchasing agreements or licenses, there may be obligations in those agreements that perhaps your purchaser wasn't anticipating that could actually prevent the full exploitation of the rights that are purchased. So you have to look for those kinds of things. Figure out if there's any particular existing risk that's once you buy it, the IP, you might have a problem like a lawsuit. Like there was a situation that I was involved in a couple of years ago where I told the client that if you buy these rights, you are going to be in a lawsuit, and lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. So, as a big picture approach, if you have to have your checklist and things, and you have to investigate and interview the target company and either their lawyers or their personnel, and you can trust what they say, but you have to verify. Every time, what I've noticed is that some people are either they're not quite adept at the at what's needed for a purchaser in order to confirm value, and they'll tell you things that maybe aren't exactly true or complete. So you want to make sure that you can get the information, but you have to verify it. And I had outlined this situation where here we found a risk of infringement, and the way that we dealt with that was we made the seller get an IP opinion, made sure they spent money to get comfortable about non-infringement, but still allocated the risk of infringement on the seller. So the deal still got signed. This slide just pretty much summarizes what I've already been talking about. You have to conduct searches, review all the agreements that may be involved, to make sure that there aren't any unwarranted or undisclosed obligations that might trigger once you do a purchase. Do an interview of all the personnel that are involved and get information that way, and definitely look for whether or not there's infringement of third-party rights. So basically, you want to make sure that the seller of IP rights is able to guarantee three main things, and I see I have a typo, but the first one is that they have exclusive ownership of the IP rights you're purchasing that are of value, that they have freedom to operate in the space, and that the rights that they do own are valid and enforceable. And sometimes when you find exceptions, you can use schedules to list sort of the exception of, if for instance, there's a rep that says, we don't infringe any third-party rights, but if you found some third-party rights, like in the situation in the other slide, you would put that put the infringement opinion or a mention of the infringement opinion in the schedule, and that would be an exception to whatever the representation of warranty is. So one way is to allocate the risk is to adjust the price. If it's too much, if it's too high, you can cut it in half or whatever makes sense based on whatever risk was identified. Have an escrow, have identification clauses, and also in some situations you may be able to purchase insurance. Another way to deal with risk is to have certain things taken care of before the closing, before money changes hands, and I have a list of things that could be done, like executing assignments that if there aren't clear ownership, or filing registrations for copyrights, or doing license, or whatever is appropriate at the time. the most, I think, important thing that I've learned over the 25 years in working on deals is that you can't be a mean guy. You have to try to make friends and influence people so that your counterpart in the deal is willing to help you. Because obviously, if they're helpful and they're not hiding anything, well then they'll receive some value for whatever the asset they're selling, and your client, if you're representing the purchaser, will obtain the value that they thought they were obtaining throughout the deal. So I see I have 2 minutes, so that's pretty good. And that's all I have for my presentation.